We have a Title IX state tracker, and we basically looked at all 50 states. And this was less of like a school by school or district level analysis and more state by state. So, how do state laws conflict with what the federal government has said? So, under the Biden administration, they rewrote Title IX to say that sex discrimination includes gender identity. And obviously, the Trump administration does not agree with that definition of
So let me interrupt you.
Title
So
IX.
that's a really important thing. Sex is like how we've traditionally understood, just like boy and girl. And then when they change that meaning to be gender identity, that means your
Quite
any
literally
number of like hundreds of gender.
what Title IX is supposed to be on its head.
Okay.
So what it was set out to do is prohibit sex-based discrimination in
Hmm.
any education program that receives federal funding. So that's protecting girls' sports and single-sex spaces, equal treatment for women that they really didn't have before. And women were able to go to college and play women's sports, and this was created for women. And now you have instances where, in my view, it's really like the least feminist thing you could ever do is allow a biological male to
Right.
compete in women's sports. Like, this was supposed to be a win for women, and it was for the longest time. And now what it was set out to do in 1972 is completely flipped on its head. Cue the Trump administration. They came in and they said, look, we're passing this executive order that says that, he passed it after coming into office. It says, we need to go with what Title IX was defined as with its original intent for separate spaces for men and women, whether that's in sports or locker rooms. And basically, the Trump administration, through executive order, said states need to get in line. So what we looked
Hmm.
at is what states are compliant and what aren't. 32 states are compliant, and 18 and DC, no surprise, are not. So that means that in those states, theoretically, and in some cases we have seen it, males can compete in female sports and access girls' locker rooms. So it was passed with that intent, and now it's kind of been flipped on its head.
Okay, so 18 is a lot of states. I mean, I think the scope of, I mean, we've kind of jumped around a lot so far, but we have hit on a few really big items. One, this stuff is widespread. This is not just San Francisco or Los Angeles anymore. I think for years, Fox News and other people have just been reporting on these kind of crazy one-off examples of crazy things happening in the classroom, maybe a woke thing here or there. But this is not California politics anymore. This is 18 states around the country, and the 32 that were able to toe the line with this. It was not an easy fight for all of them. Some of them had to some of them resisted, and then the courts, ruled against them. And so it was not a simple issue. So this is widespread. It's federally funded in many cases, maybe not specifically these bathrooms here, but I believe the Biden administration was actually threatening to pull funding from schools that did not embrace their interpretation. So a few years ago, if you did not allow, trans boys to go play in the girls' locker room, then you could risk losing your federal funding. So I think part of what Trump's doing here is reversing that.
Well, and threatening to do the same thing, which he's gotten so
Yeah,
much backlash for.
he's doing the exact same thing as Biden, right?
And, I would say it does kind of fall along blue and red lines as far as these states. I mean, you have kind of the non-compliant states being California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, obviously District of Columbia, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts. Like, these are blue states, but I would say like coastal states, these more of the flyover states, as you like to maybe call them, are more in line and compliant with what the administration has said, and ultimately federal law trumps state law. So these are not really optional guidelines. They kind of have to get on board. And if not, I think as we've seen in California and Maine, the Trump administration is planning to take action. And those are kind of the case studies for what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think you make the point about feminism, which is interesting because the point about, I think it's a really strong point, of course, on the left, and not just the left, but there's been a lot of changes made in the last few decades to help women, protect women, give women, different spaces. And Title IX was a big part of that because it basically went from women can't do a lot of these sports at all to saying, no, you have to provide equal resources to women's teams. That was the idea. You can't give the boys football team all the money and then have the girls soccer team is like doing fundraisers. It's not fair, right? And so it's kind of a fairness in treating women's sports the same. Now the men have just switched over, and now men have two leagues, and women have won because the women can't compete in the men's leagues in most of the time. There's a few examples, exceptions to that. And there's also a health risk here. I have a few of these examples written down. 2022, North Carolina volleyball player Peyton McNabb suffered a serious injury to her face after a male player, trans, spiked the volleyball and hit her directly in the face. Serious injury. Last year, a female athlete with a trans-identified male opponent knocked her out in a field hockey game. I mean, imagine playing field hockey with a man, Kendall, just throwing an elbow into your face. It's horrible. Kip Academy in Lynn, Massachusetts, a 6-foot-tall male player with facial hair playing for the Kip Academy girls basketball team injured multiple players. And he actually injured so many players that the team had to forfeit because they didn't have players left. Do you feel empowered as a woman listening to this kind of thing?
Definitely not. And I think it's also worth pointing out that this is one of those classic 80-20 issues. Liberals, Democrats, I think, who are middle of the line and reasonable, look at this and they say, okay, like, this is not fair. We need to figure this out. At least we can't continue on with the way things currently are. So it's very strange that this is the hill that they're choosing to die on, because I'm not a politician, but my understanding is like an 80-20 issue, not in your favor, is not a winning issue for you. So why would you choose this as your hill to die on? I think it's something that Republicans have been able to run with and say, look, this is not good. And people who are in the center, in the middle, just are probably kind of agreeing. And that's just something that I think is something for these states to think about. Like, the majority of the country is not in line with that view.